Let's remember together some of the greatest TV and movie stars of yesteryear with the woman who knew them. Mary Jane Popp hosted radio and TV shows for nearly 5 decades, meeting these stars and getting them to share their real-life stories. You'll meet them up close and personal as Mary Jane searches her extensive archives for the best and brightest real star talk on Pop Star Talk. And here she is, Mary Jane Popp.
It's time to take a step back in time with stars and personalities on Pop Star Talk. Now, they shared so much of their lives, personal lives, I might add, that I found it difficult to choose which to share with you. But I think you're going to love the pick for this edition of Pop Star Talk. Of course, Ken Segura-Noel, my producer and good friend, is with me, of course. And so is syndicated radio film critic and historian Matias Bombal of MAB Hollywood to share some insights into their careers. Hi, Matias. Hi, Ken.
Hello.
Hi, Mary Jane.
Good to have you with us. This is going to be a fun one, but I want to start out a little bit different than I've done in the past. I have a little snippet of a woman who is doing a song from The Music Man called Till There Was You. Once you hear this voice, you'll know exactly who I'm talking with.
There were bells on the hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all till there was you. There were birds in the sky, but I never saw them winging. No, I never saw them at all till there was you.
That is the incredible voice of Shirley Mae Jones, who so many fell in love with on the Broadway stage, television, and film. And she worked with her sons on a variety of venues, David, Sean, and Patrick. But she didn't start out to be an actress, folks. She had other ambitions, which she shared with me when I interviewed her in 2012. Now, she was working with her son, Patrick, so I had to ask her what it's like working as mom and son on stage and television.
Well, we've been doing it for some time. Patrick is the Broadway person. He's done 7 Broadway shows.
Wow.
And 7 years ago, we went back to Broadway together to do 42nd Street. And we made Broadway history. It's the first time a mother and son ever appeared together in a Broadway musical.
Fantastic. Well, you guys are so good together.
Well, we enjoy working together. And this production in particular, I think Patrick is just made to play Harold Hill. And it's fun for me because I don't have the giant responsibility of the lead anymore. And yet Mrs. Peru is great fun to play for me,
Absolutely. Now, you were given a golden gift, Shirley, a great voice. Did you ever want to do anything else?
I've done just about everything, to be very honest with you. You mean outside of show business?
Yes.
I wanted to be a veterinarian.
No way.
Oh, yeah. That was my first love. I was able to sing when I was 6 years old. It was a gift that was given to me.
Uh-huh.
And that was just, I thought everybody could sing. I had that. But I was an only child, and my brothers and sisters were every animal known to man. I raised everything.
Oh, my.
And so my dream was to be a veterinarian, and it didn't happen because I stopped off in New York City after graduating high school, went to an audition, and I never got to college.
Is it true that you really didn't know Oscar Hammerstein?
No. I didn't know who Rodgers and Hammerstein were. And I was in New York with my parents, which we did every summer. We drove to New York from Pittsburgh. And I knew a pianist there that I worked with at the Pittsburgh Playhouse. In the summers, I would go to this place called the Pittsburgh Playhouse, and I studied drama and dance and so on, and sang everywhere, But still, again, I wanted to be a vet. So, and I happened to call this pianist that I knew, and he said Rodgers and Hammerstein was having open auditions today for anybody that wanted to sing for the casting director. And I said, who are they?
I love it.
Anyway, it's an old story now, but I went to the audition, and the casting director called Richard Rodgers in personally to hear me, and Richard Rodgers called in Oscar Hammerstein from home to come and hear me. And my pianist had to leave, and they had the City Center Symphony was across the street. That's why Rogers was there.
Uh-huh.
And they said, well, if your pianist has to go, you can come and sing with the symphony. Now, I had never heard a symphony, seen a symphony, let alone sing with one. And they took me across the street, and I sang "People Will Say We're in Love, Oh, What a Beautiful Morning" in Oklahoma with the City Center Symphony with
Wow.
Rogers and Hammerstein. And 3 weeks later, I was in my first Broadway show.
Amazing. I've seen you in all the movies that you've done, and you just are spectacular. But I got to ask you, do people still call you Mrs. Partridge?
Oh, sure. I mean, I remember when I decided to do a television series, I turned down the Brady Bunch. They offered that to me first.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And agents and managers all said, Shirley, don't do a television series because if it is successful, your movie career will be in the toilet. And, of course, they were right about that.
Really?
But when the Partridge Family was offered to me, I thought, wait a minute. This is a working mother, first working mother on television.
Mm-hmm.
She's working with her kids. And also, I thought it's going to give me a chance to stay home and raise my kids because I had 3 kids then in school age. And, I had traveled all over the world with my children. I had a nanny and, because I was always making movies all over Europe.
Yeah, sure.
And so they were always with me. So I thought, if this is successful, yes, I may lose my movie career, but at least I have my kids.
Oh, good
And that's
for
what
you.
happened. And yes, and I'm known more for that than almost anything now.
And it was musical.
Yeah, that's the other thing, exactly.
Yeah.
And, and David, my stepson, became, the rock star of the century out of it.
Well,
and,
David and Sean both.
Yeah, and Sean, too. Sean followed in his footsteps. I tried to get him to college, but it didn't work.
Hey, listen, they're doing what makes them happy, right?
I guess so.
By the way, that's a good question to ask. What makes Shirley Jones happy?
Oh, staying in bed all day. Watching Turner Classic Movies all day.
Cool for you.
I love Turner Classic Movies. No, I love being at home, and and again, I have 2 dogs, and they're the love of my life, and my husband Marty is the love of my life. We're married 35 years.
Oh, congratulations.
And he's a nutcase of the world, but I guess I marry nutcases, and so that's my thing.
You know what? That's what it takes. I've been married 41 years, and so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If it's the right one, it's going to stick.
Yeah, exactly. And he's funny. Jack was the most beautiful-looking guy you ever saw, but he was also a comic.
Uh-huh.
And obviously that's what attracted me much more than his handsomeness.
Sure. What motivates you? I mean, what kind of still stimulates you? Said, I've got to go do this. Obviously, you're in your 70s. You don't look it, by the way. You look wonderful.
Thank you.
But what
I'm
motivates
78.
you? Oh, congratulations. You knock off 15. Easy. So what motivates you?
Everything. I take it day by day, to tell you the truth. I mean, at this point in time, if something comes up, and as I've said to my agents, I said, if the part is great, I don't care about the money. If the part is lousy, I better get paid very well.
Very good. Well said.
And that's really what it is. And also, as I said, working with my son is wonderful for me. I mean, we get along very well, and he's a very loving guy, and he has a wonderful family, too. I have 12 grandchildren. So,
really?
Yeah, and I'm an only child. So
my gosh.
It's really interesting.
You landed up having the Brady Bunch no matter what.
That's
right?
exactly right. And most of the grandkids are musical. I mean,
wow.
They're really talented. Patrick's 2 sons are brilliant. I mean, they're just 14 and 17, and they're just brilliant musicians and singers.
Does Shirley Jones have a philosophy of life? And if so, what is it?
It's just enjoy your life. I mean, as my husband said, he said he could take my bed away from the bedroom, and I just go and say, oh, well, I'll just sleep on the floor. And it's true. Things don't mean anything to me. I don't have any great need to have the most beautiful diamond ring or, the most beautiful, sophisticated gown, although I have those for work. But, I mean, I don't care about things. I care about people. I care about my family. They come first.
That's great. Any regrets?
No, not really, to tell you the truth. I really don't. I mean, I had some problems with Jack. He had a lot of problems. He was bipolar and a lot of problems. But, he was my knight in shining armor. He was my prince on the white horse.
And bipolar people are very talented
Very
people.
talented. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you said you're 78.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't look it, so don't even think about it. But what do you do anything special? Do you exercise? Do you take
Well,
supplements?
I go to Curves, the ladies' gym.
Really?
Yeah, I belong to Curves, and at home I go every day.
Excellent.
But I had knee surgery 3 months ago, and I had a knee replacement, and me
Just
running up and
three
down
months?
these aisles now is not easy, to tell you the truth.
But you move on stage as if nothing's wrong.
Yeah, I know. My knees are both bad. I have to have the other one done too, unfortunately. Arthritis, runs in my family, and unfortunately I have it. I have that. But other than that, I'm very healthy otherwise.
Well, we got to come back and talk to the guys now. You heard a little bit of Shirley Jones. It was so funny because her name was Shirley Mae Jones, but I understand that the first kind of star that she met back in 1954 was Mae West. And everybody thought, well, her mother named her Shirley Mae for Mae West. It wasn't true. But she really thought so much of Mae West and actually met her again. And I don't know if they became friends because Mae West dated back an awful lot of years. But Matias, do you have any insight into Shirley Jones? Because she was incredible.
I'd always heard that she was named Shirley after Shirley Temple, who was a huge Fox film star in the early 30s and well into the 40s, growing up as a teen, of course, in movies like Bachelor and the Bobby Socker. And I'd heard that had been, in addition to her interest at a very young age in veterinary science, which is remarkable for a young girl who loved every kind of animal. We know a girl like that. Her name is Mary Jane Pop. But Shirley did stand. I thought it was very interesting that Shirley Temple, who had been a big star at Fox, would be the very same studio that would really get an early contract with Shirley to make her such a big star, starting right away in such a big roadshow film presentation of Oklahoma, which of course came out in 1955 and was a huge hit all over again. I mean, since the late 40s on Broadway, Oklahoma was big, but the movie with a big, huge screen really, I think, catapulted her to her initial stardom. And I know people love to talk about her on television, but she had an incredibly solid movie career. And some of my favorite performances of hers, I'd probably the one she won the Oscar for, which was as the vengeful prostitute in Elmer Gantry, where she was just sensational. And I'm glad she got that Oscar. I remember that her husband had told her at that time, "Isn't this the happiest moment of your life?" And she said, "No, it's the happiest moment of my career." Because at that point, her life included those wonderful children.
Absolutely. She was just such a real person. I know you understand what I say this, Matias, but we talk to these stars. If you can get past the PR people, the public relations people, then you find a real person behind there, and they're willing to share their stories. And that's the love of my life of doing all the interviews that I've done for almost 5 decades now, is because I wanted to get to know them. She was so open to all these possibilities, don't you think, Matias?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes for a great career, I think. As she said
Yeah,
in your interview just moments ago, we heard that, if it's a horrible part, she wants to be paid a lot. But if it's a good part, she doesn't care
yeah,
about the money. And that shows the ethic that she has as a hardworking performer. I think she's had that
absolutely.
hardworking ethic the whole time during her career. I mean, after Oklahoma was Carousel, another Rodgers and Hammerstein hit. And then, of course, April Love, she was in that, and on and on and on until, of course, The Music Man, which was yet another hit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at 91, yes, she's still alive. 91, she's still with us. So I thought, Matias could share information. And then what about you, Ken? You've got to have some thoughts about Shirley Mae Jones.
Well, I'm trying to recollect. I know she was at Music Circus,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to remember what the play was. Was it Music Man?
No, she did Music Man with her son, Patrick.
That's
And
right.
she wasn't the ingenue, she wasn't marrying the librarian here at Music Circus in Sacramento, but Patrick played the lead that
Right.
Robert Preston did. And she played another part as an older woman because she, not the ingenue anymore. She loved working on stage with her sons.
Right.
Absolutely. Same thing with the Partridge family. They were on tour musically and on television, and the two sons were with her. It's just David became, like she said, a rock star
Right.
after that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's passed. So it's sad, but that's just the way it is, I guess.
Well, we used to do the commercials for the music circus.
Did you?
I'm trying to recall, but I think we did the commercial with Patrick. I did meet her briefly when we were shooting the commercial, but she wasn't in the commercial.
No.
But we, in editing the clip for the commercial, we pulled some footage from the different stage plays and movies she was in. But, I always remember her as Mrs. Partridge.
Yeah, like she said, she's still probably best known for that. So anyway, so let's get the rest of the story. When I asked her, as I talked to her about all those wonderful songs that she sang, and Matias mentioned Oklahoma, Carousel, The Music Man. But you know what? Did she always remember Marion the Librarian in Music Man? And do those songs still reverberate in her head?
Are you still in your mind singing those songs?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I love it.
Before I came here, I just happened to tune into Turner Classic, and they had the Music Man on.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, I don't stay for the whole movie. Well, I watched the whole film, and I have to tell you, at the end, the tears were just running down my face.
Oh.
I was really very moved by not just me, but by the whole thing, and knowing I was coming up here to do it, with Patrick. And when I see her, she's beautiful and sings like a dream, Brandy, and it's very moving to me. I sometimes have to be very careful because I start to cry on the stage.
Oh, bless your heart. Yeah, but you know what? That shows you have such heart.
Well, I hope so.
Absolutely. Is there anything that's still out there that Shirley Jones wants to accomplish?
Not really. I've often said if a wonderful play, not a musical, but a play came up, I might be interested in doing that, on Broadway or something like that. It was an interesting play, but not a musical because it's just too difficult for me now to do 8-9 shows a week. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that would be interesting to me.
But I understand that you were typecast, but you're a wonderful actress. I mean, when you did Lulu and Elmer Gantry, oh my word.
Yeah, well, that was Burt Lancaster was the one that did that for me. I mean, he believed in me much more than the director did because the director didn't want me. Richard Brooks.
No kidding, no?
No, he didn't want me. He wanted Piper Laurie.
Oh.
And so I had a hard time. But Burt was co-producing, and Burt had seen me do a Playhouse 90. Remember when they had the live television shows?
You bet.
It was, Playhouse 90 and Lux Video Theater. Well, I did all of those after the musicals because I had to prove myself as an actress. Because if you were a musical person, they didn't think of you as an actress,
Right.
And that's what happened. And Burt saw me in those shows, and that's why he called me about Gantry. And I came in and met Brooks, and Brooks still said no. And Burt called me 3 days later and said, "You got the part, Shirley." And but he said, "I want you to come in every day," because Richard Brooks shot in sequence. He didn't shoot out of sequence, and I didn't come in till the middle of the film. And Burt said, "I want you to come to the set every day, watch the shooting, have lunch with me." He was my mentor, and and the very first day of shooting was the hardest scene I had to do, which was the scene in the House of Prostitution where I talk about how I met Elmer Gantry, the big scene. And I got no direction from Brooks. He just sat with his legs crossed, smoking his pipe, and never gave me a direction.
Oh.
And I thought I was fired, and I went home. And the next day I didn't have to work, and Brooks called me on the phone, and he said, "Shirley, I just saw what you did yesterday." And he said, "I owe you an apology." He said, "Not only are you going to be great in this film, but I predict you're going to win an Academy Award."
No way.
Yeah. And from then on, he was my best friend and my best director. I did another film with him.
Amazing stuff. Today with independent films, actors and actresses have a much better opportunity to do the types of movies they would like to.
Yes, that's exactly right. I did a film called Bedtime Story.
Oh, yeah, did you?
Yes, you know about that?
No.
It was Adam Sandler's company. Shirley Knight's in it, and the other wonderful actress that was in the series forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
God, I can't think of her name right
That's
now.
okay.
Anyway, the three of us, we decided to do it. And it was all Adam Sandler's people. That company is incredible. They're all young people that write, direct, act, do everything.
Uh-huh.
And Bedtime Story was hysterical. I played this this old woman, she lives with the two other ladies, and she just likes to sleep with 20-year-old boys.
Oh.
And that was my character.
I love it.
And I have more people coming up to me saying, I loved you in Bedtime Stories.
Now I'm going to rent it just to see it. I've got to see
Yeah,
it.
it's very funny.
Oh, I love it. So it's Shirley, you have done so much in your life that if you could pick out anything that really and I think I know exactly what you're going to say, because it seems to me that family means the most to you.
Yes, it does.
Is it true?
Yes, absolutely. It's so funny. My husband Marty said, my speech that I made when I won the Academy Award. I said, this is the happiest moment in my career, and he said, why didn't you say in your life? I said, because that's not the case.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. You say you have 2 dogs. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have a golden retriever. They're all rescues.
Oh.
And I have a little mutt. She's half Welsh Corgi and half we're not sure what. But I had a cat that just died 3 weeks ago at 20 years old.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I know what it's like. We've got 2 dogs too, a Samoyed and a golden retriever mix.
Oh yeah,
rescue dogs, and
so beautiful.
And they're so. You know what? They make life special, don't they?
They do for me. I've often said to Marty, if I decide I can't work anymore, don't want to work anymore, I will, call the vet and say, can I come over and help every day? Can I come over and work with the animals every day?
My husband does that. He goes to every Monday. He walks dogs at a rescue place called Golden Retriever Homeward Bound.
Yeah, that's what I would do too. Yeah, I've had 2 golden retrievers. I lost my other one just a year ago. Now we've only had this new one, and the one I have now is about 7 years old, and he was born in Taiwan.
No kidding.
Yeah, my husband said, do I need to call the Chinese embassy and say, how do you say sit, stay in Chinese?
He does have a sense of humor. That's cool. That's
Big
great.
Time.
Now, is it true that maybe you and your son are going to do a 50th anniversary tour?
Yeah, that's the idea, to tell you the truth, because the other night, Patrick had 2 or 3 people come from different, one from Las Vegas, one from L.A., producers who do this. And that's the idea of possibly taking this show out on tour for a while.
Well, Shirley, I want to thank you. I know you're still busy. You're in shows right now, and it's like taking the time with me. This has been absolutely marvelous.
I'm so glad.
And thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
Good, me too.
God bless and keep up the good work. You're such an inspiration to all of us.
Oh, thank you, my dear. Nice to talk to you.
Same here.
All right.
Bye-bye, dear. She is an inspiration, and audiences in Sacramento have appreciated not only her talent and her beautiful voice and her love of theater. She is Shirley Jones.
And exactly that. She's such a, like I said before, she's such a real person. And Matias, I think you know this. She was married to Jack Cassidy, who was also a comic and actor. And then they divorced. She married Marty Engels. As a matter of fact, I think I've still got an interview with Marty Engels. With somebody like that, when you interview comedians, and I'm sure, Matias, you know what I'm talking about, all you have to do is say hello. And then they take it from there with all the one-liners and all that. Marty Engels was very funny. But she really did, Jack Cassidy was the love of her life. If he would have snapped his fingers to have her go back, she would have gone back. Because, like she mentioned, he was also her mentor and the love of her life. And I don't know. It's hard with these stars. So many people go through so many husbands and wives. It's hard to keep track with them today. But way back then, they were devoted to each other, don't you think?
Absolutely. I absolutely think so. I mean, she referred to him as his knight in shining armor.
Yes.
What a more beautiful tribute of love could there be than that? It's classic in every sense of the word. I really enjoyed listening to her talk about the Adam Sandler bedtime story, which was which was interesting because, she actually made a film in 1964 called Bedtime Story, which was remade as Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Michael Caine and Steve Martin. But the first time it was David Niven, Marlon Brando, and she.
Wow.
And that's relatively early in her career. And to see her in that bedtime story, which is a classic, as is the Frank Oz remake with Steve Martin and Michael Caine, it's one of my favorite movies of that decade. It's a great story. And she was wonderful in that first version of Bedtime Story. And so, what an interesting bookend in her career to have such a big hit earlier in her career with that title. And then that title surfaces again in a more humorous way.
It's kind of interesting that she talked about Jack Cassidy and what a sad ending that he had. They were already divorced. She was married to Marty Engels. But I guess what happened is that he was a smoker and he was in his apartment or hotel, I'm not sure which one, and fell asleep, I guess, with the cigarette, and it caught on fire. And the firefighters found his body the next day. I mean, how sad to have that happen to someone that was so important in your life. Don't you think, Matias?
Well, a loss is so horrible, and as we all know, when we lose someone very important to us, it's a constant progress of change of
Yes.
how you feel about it. It never stops hurting, but how we look at it seems to change. But this is the course that we all must follow in life at some point. When we get to a certain age, it all becomes about loss. The friends we went to school with, they're starting to pass away. All of those things are slowly diminishing. And yet,
Yes.
if you look at a screen star, that's the fascinating thing, really, about motion pictures and stars that we like. They're ageless because we watch that movie again, and there's Shirley Jones in her 20s. And she is like that eternally on film and on the digital permutations of it made since then, so we can watch them on television or other places. And so it's an interesting thing, as she recalled in the interview earlier, looking at herself on Turner Classic Movies and staying
Yes.
through the whole movie and crying at the end because how beautiful it was. It must have been really something for her in her present at the time that she was watching the television, looking at herself so many years ago. She could not have helped but have thought about what had happened in ensuing years and had maybe a little bit of pride in how good those performances were.
And rightfully so. Hey, Ken, isn't she's such a special lady, don't you think?
Oh, yes, and Matias hit exactly what I was thinking about, bedtime stories. Can you imagine? She was talking to Adam Sandler. I'm thinking, wait a minute, Adam Sandler wasn't even born probably when bedtime stories with with the actor David Niven and Marlon Brando. And I saw that not too long ago, and I kept, I right away I saw, well, there's Marlon Brando, and he looked pretty good. And that's Shirley Jones.
Yeah.
Wow. So what an extreme of, bookends of people she's worked with and everybody in between, to work with all these people and still be very humble. She comes across so humble and so nice.
Mhm.
And, she could have a huge ego because she has an amazing career both on stage and in motion picture and television. Did she ever win an Oscar?
Yes, for the part that she played in Albert Pantry. Yeah.
I know she won a Grammy and an Emmy for television. Did the Partridge Family ever win
Oh,
Emmys?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The whole, from television to stage to motion picture to the recording studio and getting songs out and her singing. What a career.
Absolutely.
And again, she's not out there, look at me, look at me, look at me. She's very humble.
I gotta try and get a hold of her again because I know she's 91. You never know it that, when they get into their 90s that sometimes some of the recollections go away, but in her case, probably not. I mean, she was very, very sharp. So anyway, Matias, Ken, thank you so much. It's the final edition of this one with Shirley Jones, but there's going to be more to come. So that's it for now for this edition of Pop Star Talk. But going to be a whole lot more to come with wonderful people in show business that I had the pleasure of meeting and got to know and made so many new friends that remain forever in my mind and my heart. So till next time, Ken, Matias, when we meet again, I'm going to leave you with the thought that I always signed off on all my shows. Live simply, laugh often, love deeply, and above all else, dare to dream.
Produced by Audavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.